Good morning and welcome to the December 14th, 2022 City Council meeting. We will begin with the invocation from Councilman Curtis, followed by the pledge. If you'll please stand.
Pray with me, please. Lord, we thank you for this day. We come to you today grateful for the opportunity to serve our city as council members, as staff, and as first responders. We pray that you'll help us today to use the time that you give us to better serve our fellow citizens. We ask for your continued blessings on the city of Tyler, and we pray for the well-being of our staff and first responders as they carry out their duties today. Lord, as we find ourselves in this time of anticipation for the arrival of Christmas Day, we pray for safe passage for ourselves and for our family members as they travel during this Christmas holiday season. We ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. All right.
She said amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will begin with the minutes from the October 26th, 2022 meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion by Wynn, second by McKellar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, we're going to come down for a couple of awards. And I think Olivia's already ready for one. Is there a presentation, or are we just doing it?
I think he's doing it.
All right. As part of the Bring Your Baby to Work program, we have a new graduate. And so 6-month program, and Case brought Olivia to work, and it's a great program. And it makes moms smile, and it makes people in the workplace smile, and it's just good. It's good for everybody. So we want to say congratulations on 6 months. And it's a great time. You know? No? She would. Right. Over here. Good job. And feel free to bring her back to work anytime.
Also like to congratulate Olivia on her retirement. We've got her 3 books. You're all my favorites, and a few other goodies in the bag. So congratulations to Miss Olivia.
All right. Now we have some service awards. The first is Amanda Cook, Administrator, 20 years of service.
Yeah, there you go.
Next, we have James Owens, plant operator, 20 years of service. our senior captain, 35 years of service. And next we have Gary Cannon, project manager, 25 years of service. And last, we have Alan Lowery, police officer, 25 years of service. Yeah, together, all these folks represent 125 years of service, and that's a long time. So just thank you to all of y'all for what you do for the city, for the example that you give. You know, some of our young people that get hired, sometimes people kind of jump around from job to job. And so y'all are an example of loyalty to your community and loyalty to your job. So we just thank you all for what you do. So thank you. All right, zoning item. Kyle?
Sir, good morning, Mayor and Council. The one item we have today is a zone change request from C2 General Commercial District to M1 Light Industrial District. This is to allow for the construction of a billboard on this property. This property is located along Frankston Highway or Highway 155 South. The area is generally developed with industrial and warehouse and commercial uses. This would amend the future land use guide to reflect light industrial manufacturing. However, the intended land use is to allow for a billboard on the property, as it is a challenging site to develop as it is. And so with that, the applicant would be required to comply with all regulations for billboards within the city, including the cap and reduce policy, which requires for every new billboard face that 2 other billboard faces are removed, and so that there's no net increase in the number of billboards. The applicant understands this requirement. Of the notices that were sent out, none were returned in favor or in opposition to the request, and the Planning Commission recommends approval of this zone change.
Any questions for Kyle?
Move to approve Z1.
Second.
A motion by McGee, second by Curtis. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Kyle. P1, Rose and Lance.
Mayor, members of council. Mayor, I know this is your favorite subject. Stop loss renewal. We come before the city council every year to renew the stop loss insurance for our self-funded health plan. We did have a meeting with the finance committee on Monday to talk about the preliminary results, but I'm going to go through my presentation. This is a big expense item that we pay every year, so it's very important that we're transparent with the council and answer any questions that you have. here's just the agenda of everything I'm going to go through. So we procure stop loss every, sometimes, there's been years where we've procured it multiple years in a row. We're asking for approval for the third year of a renewal with Berkeley that we originally procured, as you can see here, January 1st, for January 1st, 2021. So we did a formal RFP during that year. We received 4 quotes. There's a lot of insurance markets to go to for stop loss insurance. We did have a number of declines for various reasons, but ultimately we settled with, we moved to Berkeley from Berkshire Hathaway that year at a 15.5% increase, which is, really its annual inflation on stop loss is right around 15%. It's a calendar year contract, so on a fiscal year, we only see 9 months of these renewal increases, and I'm going to kind of continue to talk through that. So 3 years of the current contract that's in force, and then we'll get in the fiscal year 9 months of the renewal contract. As a reminder, we carry a $375,000 deductible on any individual that's on our health plan. So that means the city of Tyler is responsible for the first $375,000 of claims for any employee, any pre-65 retiree, their spouses or dependents that are covered on the plan. We do have some contractual provisions that are advantageous for us. We put those in several years ago. And we did, under the contract in 2021, we had one individual lasered, which means that Berkeley set a different amount for that one individual. And then the council approved that contract November 11th of 2020. So just some historical information there. So for 1/1/2023, we're asking the council to approve our second one-year renewal. The preliminary renewal, and it was not good. The preliminary renewal was 45.68% on a calendar year and 37.39% on a fiscal year. We did go back and firm up that renewal. We got some improvements, although slight, to the renewal increase, 40.86 on a calendar year and 33.7 on a fiscal year. So, not giving a ton of information here, but we have had a rough year as it relates to large claimants, stop loss reimbursements. Berkeley is, when we met with the finance committee on Monday, the Berkeley owes us over $2 million in reimbursements at this point, and we pay, I think, $700,000 annually for premium. So they're taking a huge hit. They're trying to recoup some of that in the next, calendar year, and we believe that, as we told the committee Monday, we're not very attractive to the market. So what we did is an informal market check. We did not formally go out to bid through the procurement process, but we did an informal market check, and as you can see, our best option in the market here at the bottom was 41.68% increase with three folks that they wanted higher deductibles on. So we do believe that I'm coming before you with the best option on the table, and it does keep the current contractual provisions in place. The good news, the one good news out of this is that the laser that we had at the $575,000, the individual lasered at a higher amount, we had that removed. The conditions are improving. Berkeley felt like it was time for us to be able to remove that liability. So that's $200,000 of improvements as far as the city's liability there. All right, a lot of fine print here. I gave you kind of the high level numbers, but what we're doing here is we show you the current contract right there on the far left. And I mentioned the premiums. We pay on a calendar year roughly $700,000. And then we do have what's called aggregate insurance on our group as a whole. And our aggregate liability is roughly $15 million. So if we have claims over and above $15 million, Berkeley reimburses us as well. So we have two components of our contract. So the renewal, and I'll just skip to the negotiated renewal, which we just went over on a fiscal year 33.7%. So we're looking at, $235,000 in premium increases there. And they did increase our aggregate claims liability. Obviously, with some of the challenges we're having this year from a claims standpoint, they're trying to broaden the gap to where they would have to pay out a claim on our group as a whole. So that's what we're asking for approval on. On the far right, we're just showing all the calendar year numbers as well, as I mentioned, which would be a full 12 months of the increase. Any questions?
You mentioned that it's been a rough year.
Yes, sir.
Can you elaborate on what the challenges have been or why it's been rough?
Yeah, that's a great question. And for this coverage, like I said, we've got two components. We have the individual coverage, the $375,000. So let me just, kind of go through that. We have 9 or so individuals that have had, $5.4 million in claims this year. So a significant amount of claims. And I said $2 million. This is, by the way, these are numbers through September. So I don't even have October, November, and December numbers in here. But I said $2 million earlier. Berkeley owes us, according to my calculations, through September, they owe us $2.8 million. So when I say rough year, we've paid them $700,000. They're going to pay us back $2.8 million. And we have had good years. So it's the prior year, I'm looking at the prior year in its entirety, the full 12 months, Berkeley only paid us $193,000. So they made money in the prior year. So if you look at comparisons of the 2 years, that's what, when we talk about, having a rough year. And then our claims in general are also up. So once again, talked about this on Monday. Claims on a fiscal year are up in general as well. So we're trying to, we've made the change. The council made that approval to go to UMR, United Healthcare, for January 1st. We feel like that may have some improvements there, and then we've got some other strategic things that we're going to be meeting with staff about very soon to kind of curb some of that.
Do we have, are there any more lasers, or are there just no new lasers?
So good question, Councilman. We are, if y'all approve this contract today, we will have the one laser that we had on the plan will be removed.
Okay.
And then we have a no new laser contract, which is advantageous for us. So Berkeley I can't come back before you next year and assign lasers to specific individuals.
Okay.
So the best of both worlds for us right now.
I have a question. Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yes, Councilwoman.
Yes. So just curiosity, was COVID a factor, you think, or just other illnesses?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think when you say COVID, the fact Rose and I were just talking about this just a minute, obviously COVID in itself had issues. You had people that were staying in ICU beds for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, lingering issues after that. So there were direct impacts to COVID nationally to health programs, but also indirectly, a lot of people delaying care, right? Or not, not being diagnosed in a timely fashion to where things are more costly because we took more time to go and get that diagnosis that we needed to get care sooner. So both indirectly and directly, Councilwoman.
Thank you.
Lance, we talked about this Monday, and to Councilwoman McKellar's point, with y'all seeing an increase in hospitalizations, increases in illnesses due to COVID and other circumstances, will y'all be running that exercise of looking at prior years and expecting future years and what that may look like with a possible lowering of the deductible and how that might increase premiums, but where we're not out of pocket, $375,000 per person, and it's a different deductible, and how that might save us money in the long term?
Right. Councilman, it was a great question from you on Monday, and we did some preliminary review of what that looked like. So when I was hired in 2016, we had a $375,000 deductible. We have not gone up there. We have also not gone down because it's very difficult to, typically once you raise that deductible, it's hard to stomach the increase to go backwards. But we will.
And when you say increase, you mean increase in premiums?
Increase in
Yeah.
premiums. And we talked about on Monday, I just did a hypothetical scenario for the councilman on Monday that if we reduce that deductible down to, $200,000, I just did some general analysis that said that would be, roughly $1 million increase in premium. But I committed to the councilman on Monday that we will do a more thorough analysis on the reduction of y'all's individual liability and see if it makes sense. A lot of times, like I said, it's very difficult to stomach that increase in fixed cost, the cost that you're going to spend, versus the reality of if we have people that, have serious illnesses and conditions. So we absolutely will commit to that and bring that back before the council, or at least the finance committee, with our results there.
Okay, thank you, Lance.
And you may have alluded to this when you said there's other things that y'all were going to talk about. And this certainly isn't something that's unique to the city. I mean, everybody who has a health insurance policy runs into this. But are there things that we can do to help mitigate, the extreme highs and claims?
I think, we certainly, the council has always been great about the proactiveness of, making recommendations. I think, like I said, the first step was when we made that, we're making this TPH, third-party administrator change to UMR. I do think that is going to help us. Health First had some great contracts out here in East Texas, but more and more we had people going to the Metroplex or Houston. We had people going to Trinity Mother Francis, and we were negotiating one-off contracts there, whereas right now, moving forward, we're going to have a contract at Trinity Mother Francis, at these other facilities. So that was the first step, I think, in righting the ship. And then I'm going to bring a menu of items back in, the first quarter of next year to start working with HR and administration on, here are some things that we can do to tackle additional exposure and cost. Drugs are a perfect example. Prescription drugs is a very costly part of your health plan right now, and there are some strategies out there we can do to mitigate that specialty cost, those specialty drug costs. Councilman, there's probably 5 or 10 other things that I could probably put together, but it's time to get to work on some of those items now that we've got the big TPA, the third-party administrator item behind us, which y'all know was a real heavy lift this year.
Any other questions for Lance? I'll entertain a motion.
Second.
Got a motion by McGee, second by McKellar. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. P2.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, Lance.
Thank you, Lance.
Thank you, Lance.
Luke? Chief?
Morning, Mayor and Council. Good to see you today, City Manager. Earlier this year, we came to you with a request that we were able for approval to apply for a Edward Byrne Justice Assistant Grant associated with a digital forensic scanner. That was approved, and we did receive that grant in the amount of $33,765. As we move forward, we got to find the other pieces to pay for this. It's about $109,000, and that's what we're coming here on E2 today. We received a donation from the Smith County District Attorney's Office with District Attorney Jacob Putman in the amount of $54,583.49. It gets us closer to the total payment on this, and we use asset forfeiture dollars to pay for the remainder. So I come to you today requesting that the City Council consider approving the attached donation request and authorize the City Manager to accept the Smith County District Attorney's donation for partial payment for a digital forensic scanner, laser scanner, in the amount of $54,583.49.
Can you explain how this thing works?
Well, I don't want to step on the next presentation.
Okay, okay.
That's what Luke is here for. So he's going to go through the whole thing, but this portion just gets us towards being able to purchase it.
Okay, any questions for Chief?
Move to approve P2.
Second.
Got a motion by Curtis, second by Wynn. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Luke?
Good morning, Mayor Warren, City Council,
Good morning.
City Manager Broussard. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Luke Shaver. I'm a lieutenant on the patrol unit. I'm responsible for the patrol response unit, which includes our traffic unit. Our traffic unit goes out and they will investigate our fatality accidents here in the city. And they'll assist the crime scene unit as well with complex crime scenes. We met at the beginning of this year discussing things that we wanted to do with our unit and how we wanted to move forward with the unit. And one of the officers involved in the accident investigation unit explained to me he wanted to purchase the Leica RTC 360 scanner. We did our research. We went out and we looked at this device, watched it being used, and then saw the end product. And as soon as I observed that end product, I sent Chief Toller a message saying we need to purchase this item because this item is going to move our department and our unit forward in the next century. So I'm going to start this presentation off with a video of what this unit actually does so that you will have an understanding of what it's doing. Also, I provided you all with a booklet in front of you that has the literature in reference to this device.
"3D laser scanning for public safety professionals has made important strides towards the future. From homicides to traffic collisions, never before has the investigator been able to capture scenes to such levels of detail. Previously, it took a certain level of expertise to deal with 3D crime scene data and crash scene data to create output that could be used by investigators, attorneys, and in the courtroom. With the emergence of the RTC 360 from Leica Geosystems, everything changes. With the RTC 360's built-in intelligence, the scanner actually becomes aware of its surroundings. As the operator moves the RTC 360, it tracks movement and objects within the scene, so it understands how each scan fits in with the next. This is all happening in real time. Not only is the RTC 360 the world's fastest 3D laser scanner, but it also revolutionizes the workflow for the investigator. It is also completing a 60-second high dynamic range photograph at each position. In addition, the scanner has the ability to complete a double scan, which automatically removes noise, usually generated by moving people and vehicles through a scene. Due to the ease of use of the RTC 360, 3D point clouds can be captured faster and easier than ever. And thanks to the in-field registration, the work is all but done when you get back to the office. You'll be ready to share 3D exhibits at the push of a button.
The Tyler Police Department would like to acquire the Leica RTC 360 scanner. The Leica RTC 360 scanner is equipped with cutting-edge technology to create fast and highly accurate 3D models. This type of technology will significantly enhance our fatality accident and major crime scene investigations. The Leica RTC 360 scanner works by scanning at a rate of 2 million points per second. The highly dynamic range system converts the scan data into a 3D model in under 2 minutes per scan. The Leica Cyclone 360 office software creates a 3D reality that is one of a kind. The Leica scanner is equipped with a visual inertial system that automatically tracks the unit through the scene for each scan. This technology will allow investigators to document complex scenes quickly and precisely. The technology will enhance the Crimes Against Persons Division, the crime scene unit. They will have the ability to go back and review the 3D models to further their investigation at a later date. This will also help the district attorney's office by assisting them with presenting a more in-depth case for trial. This will give them the ability to walk the jurors through the scenes of some of these complex scenes that we work as officers. The total cost for this Leica scanner, is $109,166.98. The Smith County District Attorney's Office is willing to fund half of this at $54,583.49. The Tyler Police Department will fund the remaining balance through the Justice Assistance Grant and asset forfeiture funds to cover the cost of the unit. It is the recommendation that the City Council approve the attached request to authorize the City Manager to purchase the Leica RTC 360 digital laser or forensic scanner in the amount of $109,166.99 on behalf of the Tyler Police Department.
You know, technology is amazing. And can you, just for everyone, take us to the event that occurred at the daiquiri shop? And all the men that were there trying to place the little cones everywhere. Tell us the difference that this would make as opposed to that what occurred.
Okay, good question. So the daiquiri shop, which hopefully everybody's familiar with what happened there. So that's a huge complex scene. We've had multiple rounds. There's multiple victims, unfortunately. So the way that we currently work, the crime scene will come out. They'll put their placards out. They'll photograph everything, document it as much as they can. And while doing that, you know, the wind blows the placards. It's a time-consuming process, which they will still have to do. That's not going to prevent that, but it will free up some of their time. Now, for us, for the accident investigators, they actually came out because they plotted this map. And think of getting your graph paper out and drawing a pencil and marking each point. That's how the Sokia system is that we use right now. And it takes time, and then they have to go back into Map 360 and actually put that in there and help the investigators and help crime scene. What this system will do is, once we set it up, 2 minutes per scan, we can scan a scene like that probably within an hour and a half, a complete scan of that scene with a 3D model. And what that will allow is for the crime scene, when they take their photographs, they can go back and actually manipulate the data and show exactly where each shell casing is, where each victim is. But they will actually have a 3D model to where they can go back and actually visually see it. And y'all know as well as I do, these scenes, after we cut them loose and it goes back to normal use, we've forever lost that information. Mm-hmm. This will give us a precise, detailed account of what actually took place that day when this happened.
Amazing.
Luke, how much training will be involved for y'all to get the RTC 360 out in the field?
So I talked with the reps. With the purchase of this item, it'll be a 1-week class. They will come here and actually train our accident investigators, some of the crime scene investigators as well, so that they know how this system works. And from there on, I've talked with Texas Ranger Nick Castle here, and their unit actually uses this same system and a system slightly above this one because they have a larger budget than we do. But they've actually invited us out to come out and train with them so that we can have a good understanding of how this system actually works and all the details that it will do. And I say that we're going to use this for the police department, but it's not just the police department that can utilize this. When we were doing the teleconference over this system, they actually used it on crime scene investigations for fires, for arsons. And this system has a function where you can switch it to infrared and it can actually track a burn pattern through a house to show you where the fire actually started. Instead of having the fire investigator come out and having to figure out based on the burn patterns, this scan will actually show them where the fire started. So it has multiple applications that it can be used for.
Any other questions for Luke?
So one of these will be enough, since we're sharing with Smith County?
No. So Smith County is donating the funds
Right.
for us to use it. The reason, what is beneficial for the district attorney's office is they will have access to the 3D model. And that will allow them to walk the jury through, because I can sit up here and talk about the scene and I can show you pictures, but until you're actually in that scene, you're not, there's going to be a disconnect. So this actually gives them the ability to walk people through the scene and explain, this is where the first victim is, this is where the second victim is, this is the trajectory of the bullets of each round. If you have a chance, look at the West shooting that they did. The Texas Rangers reconstructed that. And if you watch that video on what they did and how they were able to use this system, it's amazing.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve P13.
Second.
Got a motion by McKellar, second by Curtis. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Luke. Thanks, Chief. Ms. Robinette?
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Morning.
I am here this morning to request that the City Council consider adopting an ordinance which would implement a fee for the athletic field lighting. As of right now, we only charge $1,000 per field for any of our athletics fields and a $35 one-time use permit fee. We are still subsidizing about 80% of the athletic field usage between labor, equipment, field prep, field prep, supplies, and lighting. We also acknowledge that many of our fields need renovating. We took a look a while back on how we can bring in a little more revenue so that we can start putting some money back into our athletic fields so that we can bring them up to the standards that we all want them to be. For the last 5 to 6 years, we've kept a survey of other cities and the amount that they charge for lighting. All cities that we have been in contact with do charge for lighting. We haven't found a city that doesn't charge for lighting, that it's free. As you can see, these rates range anywhere from $40 an hour for Plano, $25 an hour for Waco, or even $10 an hour for Pearland. What we would like to do is start charging $5 an hour per hour for lighting, which is very low compared to the other cities. The other reason we would like to start charging for lighting is we feel it will help control our electric bill, because there are many times when the leagues ask us to have all the field lights on all at once, and then we get called by the neighbors around that park, and they are upset because all of the field lights are on, but there's nobody using them. So we think that by charging per hour, that would help our electric bill, and it would also help, the citizens that are calling us. In front of you, you have how many hours each field was used for 2019, with Faulkner Park being the highest in April at 808 hours, and Golden Road at 462 hours in December. Between all of the parks, we paid for 10,348 hours of lighting. We did not include the date for 2020 due to the pandemic, so we skipped to 2021. The highest in 2021 was 1,209 hours in March for Faulkner and 555 hours in November. During this year, we paid 15,810 hours of lighting. In order to be more proactive and fiscally responsible, we would like to gradually implement the athletic lighting fee schedule that you see in front of you. We do want to give the leagues, organizations, and individuals time to prepare so that we can implement these fees. We're going to implement these fees in the summer. Beginning in 2023, we would like to start charging $5 an hour and increase by $5 each year until we get to the $20 mark to be in line with the industry standards. This was taken to Parks Board and the Quality of Life Committee, and both of those recommended a change. So we're requesting that the city council consider adopting an ordinance implementing a fee for athletic field lighting usage.
Any questions for Leanne?
No, I will say, I commend you on coming up with this idea because, you know, it's not won't be a real popular one right off the bat, but, you know, if we're going to subsidize something, we all should know it. And it's better, I think, for these different areas to try to pay for themselves as much as possible. And obviously, we're lagging behind compared to a lot of our peers. How are we going to let all the leagues and everybody know this is coming down the?
I plan on meeting with them personally, with our athletics coordinator, each of them individually, so that we can kind of go over the fee schedule and what to expect.
And charging hourly, how's that going to work? I mean, if my team has the field rented for the night or whatever, how's that?
So each league gives us a schedule, and it tells us when they want the lights on and when they want the lights off. And we have a system that we run by our computer, so we can pull those records very easily to see exactly how many hours you spent at each park or on each field. We'll also go by the schedule and make sure that those match with the numbers that we have in our system.
So they're still responsible for turning it off?
No, they're responsible for letting us know when to turn it off. So we have we have a scheduling program that we schedule. So if you tell me you're going to need the fields from 6 to 9, we go in there and we schedule them to come on at 6 and go off at 9.
Okay.
But if their game's lasting a little bit long, you're not going to cut their lights off before their game's finished?
No, but they are responsible for calling, because it's scheduled. We get called and they'll tell us like, hey, our games are running long, and we'll keep them on longer.
Leanne, do we have a curfew on the lights?
I think it's midnight. I believe
Pretty
it's
late.
midnight. But oftentimes, the one we get called about the most is Golden Road. And sometimes I say she, but there's several people, but there's one person in particular, that, she'll call at 9 p.m. and she'll say, hey, there's nobody on the fields. She's gotten so comfortable calling. She's like, hey, you don't even have to pick up your phone. If you see my name on your phone, you just know what it is, and please turn off the lights. So we also want to just be good stewards of our money as well.
Right.
All right, any other questions for Leanne?
Move to approve 01.
Second. Motion by Curtis, second by McGee. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Thank you.
Motion carries.
Thank you,
Thanks, Leanne. Good job. Kedrick. This going to be exciting?
Of course, I'm always.
Morning, Mayor and Council.
Morning.
Morning.
We have item 02 for you. And this is an annual activity that we perform as we close out our prior fiscal year. There's always projects and items that we didn't complete, and so we always come back and ask you all to roll those funds forward to the new fiscal year so that the departments can carry on with the tasks that they've been challenged with. So for you, you have a request the City Council consider adopting an ordinance amending fiscal year 2022-2023 budget to provide funding for items completed, not completed for various construction projects, motor vehicles, and other purchases not completed completed by September 30th, 2022. I'm just kind of going to go over some of the highlights. There are a couple of new items, and I'll point those out to you. You all have the detail in your packet. Of course, I'm glad to answer any questions that you have along the way. This is just kind of a summary of all of the amendments that we're requesting from you all. General fund, we've got $389,000. Large portion of that is a new item. We're asking for additional monies for commercial demolition. We had 200,000 already budgeted in the general fund for commercial demolitions, but a project has come to our attention that's going to cost more than that, as we commonly refer to as the Tyson House. So we needed to put additional dollars in there for that. So that is primarily what that is there. General capital projects, we're finishing out some items at fire admin, and then there's various other items in there as well. Quality Street Commitment Fund, we're looking at carryover dollars for the Brick Street program and crack seal and items like that. Pollard Park improvements, $385,000. We're looking at Pollard Park project there that you all are familiar with. Then the hotel tax fund, we're amending the budget by $9 million. This is the largest one. And of course, this is related to the convention center. And also the tourism fund, $5,600 there just for some miscellaneous items. Water utilities, we're looking at $1.1 million. I think a large part of that was right-of-way clearing for our CMON department. And then Fund 503, our water utilities capital projects fund, $2.6 million. That's various projects. There's some engineering in there, 2-inch water lines, meter replacements, and just you on that. So stormwater, we've got some capital projects there. Vehicle services, $4.1 million there. Large part of that is just carryover, about $3.3 million is just carryover of vehicles that we weren't able to get in the previous year due to supply chain issues. They're just having a hard time getting vehicles in, and I think about another $500,000 for the phase 2 of the parking lot improvements over there. Property and facilities, PD-related HVAC project there as well. And then technology fund, we have $1 million there. A large part of that is the purchase of the new building that you all approved a few council meetings ago, about $850,000 for that building. Also, we put in an additional $50,000 just to get started with some of the architectural fees, because there's going to have to be some rehab work done inside the building. So anyway, he's got his building finally. So the total of those projects is about $20.5 million. So it is recommended the City Council consider approving the attached ordinance amending fiscal year 2022-2023 budget to provide funding to complete various construction projects, motor vehicles purchases, and other purchases not completed by September 30th, 2022.
Any questions for Kedrick?
Move to approve 02.
Second.
Motion by Curtis, second by McKellar. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. M1.
Okay, next item is our quarterly report ending FY 2022. This report, as usual, it compares actuals from that fiscal year to the previous year, and also how we did, budget compared to actual. So you have the details in your packet. I'll just kind of hit some of the highlights for you all. The general fund revenues were almost $5.6 million greater than budget. Most of that is due to sales tax. As you all know, sales tax has been roaring, but so we will just see how that ride continues. Also, expenditures are about $1 million less than budget. So we had a great year for the general fund. So Water Utilities Fund, revenues were about $2.5 million greater than budget, largely due to the summer activity that we had, or the drought conditions. Also, expenditures were about 3.3 less than budget. I think there was some right-of-way clearing that we didn't get to, and that was one of the items in the budget amendment, so. Solid Waste Fund, this is a fund that definitely always continue to monitor closely, but revenues were about almost $700,000 greater than budget. Expenditures were also $500,000 greater than budget. Airport Fund had about $153,000 greater than budget on revenues, $107,000 less than budget on expenditures. Development Services, we definitely saw a lot of activity in that fund. Permits were up. We saw revenues $1 million greater than budget. Expenditures almost $200,000 less than budget.
Hey, Kedrick, why do you think the revenues in that section was so much higher?
I think they were building permits, if I remember right, but I could go back and check the details.
It's just a lot.
It
It's a big
is a
difference.
lot, definitely. Yeah. Also, the Hotel Tax Fund, definitely a fund that we watch closely as well. Just the revenues just always seem to do great in this fund. About $550,000 greater than budget on revenues. Expenditures about $4.5 million less than budget. The reason we came in under is just due to construction on the convention center. Okay, employee benefits fund. As you all know, we had great discussion on that when Lance was up here. Our expenditures are about 2.1 greater than budget. We did get some ARPA reimbursement on some of our COVID claims of about $1.9 million, which was not budgeted for, so that's why we're over budget on revenues. Expenditures, $4 million over budget, and we talked about some of the large claims. We had several claims that went over stop loss, but that first $375,000 is on our plan, so if you add that up, that's a couple $1 million there. And also, we suspect that utilization is just up across the board on individuals on the plan. So we'll continue to monitor that plan. As Lance discussed, we'll come back with some solutions to try to help control the cost on this fund here. That concludes my program, or my presentation. We have a request to the council to review and consider accepting the revenue and expenditure report for the period ending September 30, 2022.
Keter, sales tax is it's a great tool for people to see how things are going in Tyler. We got the numbers a few days ago. I think we lagged 2 months behind. But the numbers we got a few days ago was how much higher than a year ago?
I think we were up about 9.5% or 10%, somewhere along in there. We're seeing double-digit numbers. We know some of it is due to inflation, but also we have a good economy here, and people are moving here. And the people that are moving here, they're coming with money, and they're spending it. So we're very fortunate to live in this community. It's a great place to be.
I'd like to hear you say that. Any other questions for Keter?
Keter, can any of those fund balances raise a red flag with you?
The health fund, that's a fund balance that we're going to have to monitor closely. Solid waste fund, the cost there, we get reimbursement on our fuel surcharge, but just the maintenance on the trucks, and it's just one that we're watching very closely.
Move to approve M1.
Second.
Got a motion by Curtis, had 3 seconds, but we'll go with McKellar. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thanks, Keter. Darren.
Good morning.
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 All right. As you all know, every year we go out for seal coat and seal coat a lot of projects, a lot of streets. We do some onyx and we do some asphalt enhancements, meaning overlays and that type of thing. So in preparation for that, what we like to do, what we do is we go out for crack sealing. We do crack sealing at this time of year, which allows us to go ahead and seal the cracks in the pavement in preparation for all those other paving improvements. It also seals it for the extreme weather we typically have in January and February. So what we wanted, we went out for bids for seal coat, which did include some base repair, which the seal coat company is not typically great at. It's not typically in their best practices. So we went ahead and added to this contract as a item. And what we're wanting to do here is, as you know, we do go out and every 4 years we have a company that comes in and rates all our streets. And then the engineering department, namely Chuck, goes out at this point, goes out and reviews those and evaluates them. Sometimes it can be adjusted a little bit because they do out and go through it more technologically. And he goes out there and does it from a 30, 40 years experience type. And manipulates those just a little bit, but also, you know, he determines which ones are the most in need each year. And whenever we're done with the crack sealing and we're done with the overlays, he goes and revises those, because it's every 4 years. He revises those each year also, the pavement condition indexes. So that gives us the basis for doing this. We went out and we ended up receiving one bid this year from Morton Enterprises in the amount of $429,919 even. Half of this will be funded from the Fund 231, the half-cent sales tax, half of it from the 103 Street Improvement Fund. We just give you up to date on Morton Enterprises. We've used them before. We've had very good luck. We've used them off and on, probably really more on than off. The last 10 years, we've had very good luck with them, very good experience with them. They are a preferred contractor for us for this project. So, in conclusion, the engineering department is requesting that the city council consider authorizing funds for a contract with Morton Enterprise for the construction of the 2023 asphalt crack seal project in the amount of $429,919.
Any questions for Darren?
Darren, why do you think just one bid? Other bidders couldn't compete with Morton, or?
There's a lot of work out there right now. We only had two, I believe two, maybe three last year. So this is not unusual, sad to say. They're just busy in DFW and other areas also.
Anyone else?
Move to approve M2.
Motion by Wynn, second by McGee. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Darren.
Thank you.
Stephanie.
Good morning, Mayor and Council.
Morning.
This morning, we are here before you all to ask for your consideration for a Chapter 380 agreement, which is an economic incentive grant that we are looking to partner with North Development. So North Development purchased the Carlton Hotel downtown, as we talked about, and staff has been meeting with them regularly and discussing the project that they're looking at. They've owned the property for about 2 years. They have pursued both local and state and federal historic tax incentives. They also are pursuing the opportunity zone incentives. So they're using all of their tools, but one of the things that has happened is construction prices continue to escalate, as well as interest rates, and post-COVID, coming out of COVID, some of the issues that they're having is just really trying to secure all of the financing. And one of the things that the Texas Local Government Code allows cities to do is to provide for these types of incentives. And particularly on the Carlton building, it has posed a pretty serious health and safety risk for us. And, you know, if we were to really look at demolition of the property, consideration for that could be quite expensive. So one of the things we're considering in this economic incentive grant is to provide $1.5 million cash reimbursement. So once they are substantially complete with the construction, which includes us issuing a temporary certificate of occupancy or later a certificate of occupancy, then that would trigger them requesting the reimbursement from the city of Tyler for the $1.5 million. The investment that they're making at this time is over a $30 million investment for rehabilitation of the structure. The other thing they had requested and that we would be providing is up to $200,000 reimbursement for permit fees. So that would mean they would pay those permit fees up front, and then we would reimburse them for that once the construction again is substantially complete. So at that point, no funds would be released until the City of Tyler Building Inspections Department would release that building. A temporary CO really just means that they move in, it's safe, it's ready to be occupied, just not by the public. We allow a lot of commercial businesses to do that when they need to move merchandise in or do other types of finish outs. The construction, as I mentioned, is a $30 million construction project with about 115,000 square feet of renovation, including the first floor completely being retail and the parking garage that corresponds with that. So the agreement directly relates to having all of that finished, not just, you know, a part of the building or a part of the parking garage. It's the entire thing receiving the temporary certificate of occupancy or certificate of occupancy. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I know that there were some questions that I think a few changes that needed to be made, and Jack Fulgham from Flowers Davis representing North is here as well. So I'll stop here, and if you have any questions of me or Jack, he can come up and answer those.
Any questions for Stephanie, or I guess you're Jack? Come on up, Jack.
Stephanie, the questions I have that you and I kind of mentioned before is if we approve this today, what happens with this draft of the agreement? If changes are made and there are substantial changes, does that agreement then get brought back to us for reapproval? And maybe this is a question for Deborah, or are we approving the document as it is today?
There have been changes, as we've been going back with the attorneys, there have been changes up to this point, and they were minor changes with the exception of them requesting that the City of Tyler escrow the money. And that is not something we were willing to do, so we removed that portion. And then I think if there were substantial changes, and Deborah, you could answer, I think we would have to come back to the council. And anything that's considered just, you know, removal, adding a definition of words that don't substantially change the legality of the document, then we would do those at the discretion of the city attorney.
Okay, but some of the things that I noticed in this agreement when looking at it, and I don't know if y'all would classify these as substantial, but they raised a question in my mind at least. In the third whereas paragraph, and then also in paragraph 3.2a, the indemnification paragraph, which I think is a huge paragraph, or an important paragraph, there's references to grantor, and I was a little unsure of who grantor is, because throughout the entire document we are referred to as the city. So I think there needs to be some clarification there, either an added definition of who grantor is, or if grantor is intending to be referred to as the city, then just reverting that to city. So there's no ambiguity there. And then in paragraph 4.4, the continuous ownership and occupancy, I think there's some ambiguity there, because one of the concerns I had with this grant of 1.5 is what happens if North sells the building or wants to assign this contract or drags their feet and doesn't want to really do anything. That language in 4.4 with that alternative provision, I think, created too much of an ambiguity, and so I'd like to see that alternatively removed, where it's just one continuous requirement of north of what they have to do. Both of those things and not an alternative measure. And I think that is a substantial change, which, if that means an amended motion this morning, then that's fine. Just to remove some of that ambiguity. And then I think, and I'm throwing a lot of questions at you at once. I think you and I kind of discussed everything else and worked out all those other questions that I had.
We don't know what's in any of those that you just said to us, so we're at a loss.
Lawyer talk.
Jack, can you state your name and address just for the record?
Jack Fulgham. I live at 1529 Southwell Avenue in Tyler, Texas.
Does anybody have any questions for Jack?
I was just going to say the alternatively language, I think that was a carryover, and we can remove that for no problem with that. And then the only other change, and Stephanie mentioned this, was adding to one of the definitions, completion of construction, just temporary or final, because it just says temporary, and we just want to be sure that in the event there is no temporary certificate of occupancy, a final certificate of occupancy would suffice to meet that requirement.
Deborah, go ahead. Deborah, based on what Councilman Haney's saying and what Jack's talking about, is this something that you're comfortable with us moving forward and everything's good with as far as this document or substantial changes or?
I think Councilman Haney has indicated that he feels that Section 4.4, with the ambiguity that he wants us to erase, may be considered significant or substantial to him. So I would think we need to negotiate that further with the other party and get it back to you all.
Yeah, I don't know what we'd be approving.
Yeah,
Right,
we
so
know what
it's too many
4.4
changes,
says. Exactly.
So do we want to table this?
Yeah,
you-
so we can know
if you
what's in
want
those
to.
areas.
So
I move that we table M3
Second.
for how long?
surely to the next meeting, I would
Yeah,
say.
we can come back at the next meeting.
Right.
Most of the stuff that's sound from talking to Councilman Haney was relatively minor.
Yeah,
Just
table.
changes for here, there, different language, questions that he had regarding the ambiguity from attorney to attorney.
Right.
The city attorney hasn't had a chance to review any of that, and so
Yeah.
you can have that back at your first meeting in January.
Table to the next meeting.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, got a motion by Curtis, second by McGee to table this until the next meeting, which will be in January. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Jack.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Stephanie. All right, M4.
Sorry.
Livia's mom.
Where's Lydia? We wanted her to do these, but
Well, good morning again, Mayor and Council.
Good morning.
The first item here is agenda item M4. It's Group 5 manhole rehabilitation. It's some consent decree work. So Group 5 is that remediation project has manhole rehabilitation, mainline specialty, cured in place pipe, mainline specialty pipe bursting, and mainline open cut. This bid award will be for the manhole rehabilitation portion of Group 5, so coatings, liners, raising manhole lids, realigning, and replacing. So the scope of work for this is 242 sanitary sewer manholes and installation of 171 sanitary sewer cleanouts. The bids were open and read aloud on November 22nd. There were 3 bidders. The low bidder was Southern Trenchless. They are the recommended bidder. So I'm here to request that the City Council consider authorizing the City Manager to execute a contract with Southern Solutions in the amount of $1,492,750.20 for the consent decree Group 5 manhole rehabilitation bid 23007 and to adopt a resolution reserving the right to reimburse expenditures with proceeds of future debt.
Any questions for Kate?
Kate, there's a pretty big difference in your low bidder and your second bidder.
You know, and honestly, in this next one that I'm going to show you too, there's a pretty big difference as well. I think it's because if you ask any of the engineers in the room as well, it's really hard to predict cost-wise how much it's going to cost to do construction in these cities. And so I really think that that's showing in our bids that are coming through as well.
I think a lot of it is too, on the higher end, they're busy. You know, they're like, well, I'll come do it at this number, but otherwise I got plenty of work.
Well, and I also will say that Southern Mass has done work for us before in Group 1, and we were very pleased with them. So, because otherwise, yes, you're right, that could have been a red flag.
Move to approve M4.
Motion by Curtis, second by Wynn. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. M5.
So M5 is another bid award for the consent decree. This is for some sanitary sewer repairs. This has some creek crossings and reroutes associated with it. As we talked about before, all the existing creek crossings were inspected and assessed. They were given a condition rating, crossing type, and repair status. Then that information is followed up with the city staff, and that work is prioritized. So for the projects, or for the project locations in this project itself, were creek crossings that were recently identified as D-rated. And those ratings go from A to E, E being the worst. So the scope of work for this is 4 D-rated creek crossings, 7 sanitary sewer point repairs. There were 2 bidders on this. The bids were opened and read aloud November 8th. Of the 2 bidders, Reynolds and Kay was the low bidder, and we are recommending them as the contractor to award the bid to. So I'm here to request the City Council consider authorizing the City Manager to execute a contract with Reynolds and Kay in the amount of $807,219 for the sanitary sewer repair bid 23008, and to adopt a resolution reserving the right to reimburse expenditures with proceeds of future debt.
Any questions for Kate? Motion by McGee, second by McKellar. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. M6.
Here's some more consent decree stuff. So M6, this is an engineering services contract with KSA. It's for the consent decree capacity work as opposed to the rehabilitation work we've been doing, or remediation work. It's for Group 2. This is a very significant project, a large project, and so I have Chris Ayler and Jeremy Ord here with me today to kind of walk you through more detail in the project and answer any questions you may have. So
Great, thanks. Chris, how are you?
Mom, appreciate it. I like how you call her Lydia's mom, that's good. She doesn't have an identity anymore, right? Mayor, Council, thank you for having us this morning. This is an honor to speak to you. You guys have seen KSA in the peanut gallery back there. Every time you guys do talk about the work that we do for the city of Tyler on behalf of our partnership with each other. So it's very nice to stand before you today and actually give you a somewhat technical presentation. And I want to kind of walk you through kind of how we got here. As Kate mentioned, the consent decree consists of all kinds of things. And you've got remedial measure work, which is some of the things that you just recently approved prior to our presentation here. You've also have maintenance things that are going on, from cleaning lines to inspecting lines. And then you get into what's the capacity projects, or things that have happened during the consent decree analysis in investigations that show that sewer lines within your collection system are actually undersized. And so what we want to talk about today is the second group of that. But the history of this was pipeline analysis, who you guys know Jim Forbes. He comes up here all the time and puts a little clock that says the time's ticking. Well, time's still ticking, but I actually didn't put a clock up on my presentation today. But pipeline analysis along with L&B. They did an extensive hydraulic model of your collection system and determined that there were many lines in your collection system that are actually undersized. Once that was determined and identified, the City of Tyler staff put these capacity projects into 3 different groups. And essentially, they tried to group them similarly based upon either location, or size, or things like that. The good news to report is we've actually been working on Group 1 for about the past year. And you guys have seen it, whether you know it or not. There's so much consent decree work going on in the City of Tyler right now. It's really hard to tell which one's which. But the 3 Group 1 projects that are actually under construction right now is segment 8B1. We commonly call that, it's over there if you've ever been over off of Front, Irwin, and Glenwood, and you've seen a bunch of sewer line work going on over there. That's it. That's being done by CNA Construction. We actually anticipate them to be done next month, January 2023. That's a really hard place to lay sewer line, if you're ever wondering. Really tough. The second one is segments 2E1 and 10A1, which we anticipate in October of next year. It's actually the last job that we bid. It's actually being constructed now by A.E. Scholl and Company. We refer to that one in the studio landmark. It's the zoo sewer line. So the sewer line that runs back behind Caldwell Zoo. And the last is segment 7, A2, 7B1, 7B2, which is actually complete. We actually, Mr. Orr and I actually went through a final walkthrough here in the past couple of weeks. There's some final cleanup work to be done, but we're pleased to report that that project's construction is complete. It's being done by J2 Construction, and its general location is to the west and north of Tyler High, over on the west part of town. So what we're here today to talk about is Group 2, which is the next capacity package that we're looking at. Where we are is we're pending project design commencement, which is why we're here today. And this consists of 2 segments. Now, segment 13A2 and segment 13C1. Now, to call it a segment, I think is somewhat misstated. It's a lot of pipe. It's a lot of sewer line. And it stretches through what we call the heart of Tyler, at least as I call it. So I'd like to, here in a minute, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Orr. He's going to go through some of the real specifics. But I also want you guys to know that Group 3, which is the last capacity grouping of projects, has been identified as a schedule to start about this time next year, right? So January 2024. So if everything lines up the way we think it's going to line up, we think that probably sometime December, January of next year, in the following year, 2023, 2024, we'd have something to bring before you that looks a whole lot like what we're talking about today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Jeremy, and he'll kind of walk you through what the projects look like.
As Chris mentioned, this particular project, Group 2 capacity work, consists of 2 line segments. They're major interceptors in the city of Tyler. All this sewer is flowing to the west side collection system for the city. The first segment is 13A2. It consists of nearly 17,000 linear feet of sewer line. Those sizes range in diameter from 42-inch diameter all the way down to some 15-inch smaller diameter. This particular line, it begins near the intersection of MLK and Gentry and runs southeast towards Prime Street, running through portions of Delic and downtown. We estimate requiring the 67 tracks requiring utility easement or temporary construction easements on this particular project. As far as project timeline goes, if we were authorized today, we think we would have this project completed April 2026. Roughly 3 years, 4 months. 2 years of that would be for actual construction of the project.
Question for you before you leave that.
Yes, sir.
The 67 tracks requiring easement, does that mean we don't have them and we need them, or?
There may be some where we have to revise, or ones where we don't have it, or we're having to reroute.
Okay.
And that's just our estimate on the top end, what we that particular line segment. The next line segment, 13C1, this particular line actually branches off of the first line segment It's 11,261 linear feet of sewer line. It ranges in diameter from 30-inch all the way down to 12-inch and smaller. This line begins south of Delic, runs all the way down Shaw Street through Midtown, Charlevoix District. I'd point out the majority of all this sewer line work is going to be located in District 4. Sorry, Councilman Wynn. A little bit in District 2 in this particular segment. This one we estimate 27 tracks requiring easement. Same thing on the project timeline, assuming we were to get authorized again today, July 2026 is when we think this project would be completed. And it would have an 18-month construction timeline associated with it. So total cost for Group 2 work is estimated at $55 million. And we see how this breaks down. Segment A2, the largest one, $3.4 million. 29.6 million of that is actual construction costs. 5.1 is your non-construction costs. For segment 13C1, total cost $20.4 million. 17.1 of that is construction costs, and 3.3 million is non-construction costs. So you may be asking, what is non-construction costs? I'll turn it over to Chris and walk you through our services.
So you guys can see, and I didn't see any draws drop, so thanks. Either that or you guys play really good poker. This is the largest project that we've estimated for the city of Tyler to undertake under the consent decree. As you can tell from Mr. Orr's presentation, the amount of footage and the diameter that we're talking about, this is a very, very large project. The timelines associated with it are also very large. You can see that we're looking at coming into the end of these projects near when the city of Tyler's scheduled to be done with the consent.
When is that? What is that?
2027. So these projects are large, and they're going to take a lot of time for us to design. We're going to do a lot of things because of its breadth within our scope of services that is costly. We're going to do every time we've dug up something, and we've dug a lot of stuff up in the city of Tyler over the past couple years for consent decree, you'll be surprised that nothing is like we thought it is. I know that's really surprising. But when we're dealing with the alignments that we're talking about and the diameter of pipes that we're dealing with, we don't really have a chance to reroute. We've got to be very sure about where these pipelines go. And so there's going to be a pretty good amount of front-end investigation that we do as it relates to what we call SU, or subsurface utility engineering and excavations. And this is where we actually have a third-party subcontractor that works for us that goes out and actually potholes and digs things up and tries to find the fiber optic lines that nobody knows are there, or the duct banks, or there's a water line there that nobody knew about, so that we can avoid these, because all of our pipeline that we're dealing with is gravity flow. So we have a certain slope that those pipelines have to maintain in order to convey the flows that are anticipated both now and in the future. So it takes a little bit of time for us to go through that. So we do anticipate 2 design packages. As Jeremy alluded to, we anticipate bidding one of the jobs first and letting it progress to a certain point, because there is a place where these 2 lines actually tie together. And it's important that the contract is done by the first contractor first, so that those lines and grades are established so that we can take off on the second project. So with that said, there's a whole litany of things. Obviously, schedule is something that we always keep in mind. And Councilman Curtis, you asked a good question. And I believe that's probably going to be our largest hurdle or roadblock in terms of completing things in the time manner is land acquisition. You know, if we do have to acquire property and easements from individuals, the time that it takes in order to do that, you know, we can design things all day long, but when it comes down to getting access to property, that's when things come out of our hands. But we've been doing land acquisition on the city's behalf with Dixon here in Tyler on a lot of our Group 3 remedial stuff and all of the other consent decree projects that we've been working on behalf of the city of Tyler. So we've got a pretty good handle on what we've got to do there, and a good team set up in order to do that. So with that, I'll entertain any questions that you guys may have.
So when you talk about scheduling, when you've got areas that are sensitive areas, or do you schedule it so you're not, say, digging up a golf course in the middle of the winter?
Right.
I mean, do you try to schedule it to where you're doing things?
Absolutely. You know, one of the things that we ask our right-of-way agents to do is to figure out, you know, what the landowner's issues are, right? I mean, so what's their busy time? What's their downtime? And we look at all of those things and try to incorporate those, especially, you know, if they're a 8 to 5 business Monday through Friday, and we're trying to run sewer line near their property that affects their business, we will try to mitigate that by laying line or doing construction work on the weekends, or earlier in the morning or later in the evening. So every time we get, whenever our right-of-way agent reports back to us, he tells us, this landowner has this concern or would like this done. And if we can accommodate it, we absolutely try to make that happen. Very rarely do we try to get into anything regarding eminent domain or condemnation. We don't want to do that. Nobody wants to do that. So we always work through trying to make the landowner happy. And even sometimes we do things where we anticipate the majority of this work to be done by conventional construction methods, open cut excavations. But sometimes we may be able to do trenchless by boring things or things like that in order to mitigate any of the surface damage. So that's how we handle those.
Okay. Any other questions for Jeremy or Chris?
Chris, you said easements is going to be tough for you. Also, how about coordination with Union Pacific?
You're exactly right. One of the very big things up there, if you guys aren't familiar, up there in Delic, there is how many rail lines are across? 5. 5. So that's actually going to be done by micro-tunneling. So whenever we actually start doing that, it'll be a real good field trip for you guys to come out there. Wear your hard hat. But that's going to be the Union Pacific Railroad, who is the owner of those lines. That's going to be a very big lift as well. So the things that we'll jump into at the very beginning is trying to figure out right away in terms of acquisition of land and the railroad tracks up there in the Delic property.
What's micro-tunneling?
It's a little bitty
Well, if you think about a boring machine, Don, a boring machine actually doesn't have anybody in the hole, but a micro-tunnel does. So if you think about it. So, you know how Elon Musk made all those millions with his tunneling? Imagine one of, those were huge. If you remember the channel between England and France, that was done with a tunneling machine, not a micro-tunneling machine, but a tunneling machine. But it's just a smaller version of that. It's really interesting.
Well,
yeah, I think at these numbers, I think we ought to look into, as we approach the end of this, as a way to market our the nicest sewer system and something to get some advantage out of this.
Yeah, pretty exciting.
Yes, pretty exciting.
Any other questions?
Our stuff doesn't stink.
Yeah.
I'll turn it back over to Kate.
I think that's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
So, after that, no more questions for Chris or Jeremy, right? So I'm here to request that the city council consider authorizing the city manager to contract with KSA Engineers in the amount of $8,408,500 for the consent decree capacity work, Group 2 implementation, and to adopt a resolution reserving the right to reimburse expenditures with proceeds of future debt.
Second.
Got a motion by McGee, second by McKellar. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Kate, Chris, Jeremy. All right, we are down to the consent agenda. Do we need to pull anything or entertain a motion as is?
Move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion by Curtis, second by Wynn. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Down to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. A few items of note, primarily all related around the holiday season. On last Saturday, the Glass Recreation Center had a great festive morning breakfast with Santa and Shorty. Breakfast Santa was a free event and had a little over 300 people attend. They were able to get pictures with Santa and Shorty. craft kits, writing letters to Santa, breakfast, and hot chocolate. And so we got thanks to all who came out and participated. The police department was also able to take part in the Houston Temple and Christus Mother Francis holiday giveaway. Sergeant Kevin Motley has stated, representatives from both Christus and Houston Temple were ecstatic at how well this event turned out and offered nothing but praises to the department and specialized units that contributed to its success. And so we thank everyone for their hard work and efforts. We look forward to next year's event being even bigger. And also our police department is involved in the Blue Santa program, and that's coming up for this coming Sunday and Tuesday nights. Chuck Boyce did let me know they have 350 plus children signed up to participate with Blue Santa this year. They'll have the Grinch, Buddy the Elf, and Pink Rabbit pajamas from the Christmas Story. So he's very excited about that. I'm not sure which one Chuck's wearing. Show up to find out. And so Sunday night we'll be at the Walmart on 6801 South Broadway. And then on Tuesday night, Blue Santa will be at the Walmart on Troop Highway. So those are always just a great event to be part of and to come out and participate with. The Tyler Pounds Airport also gets into the holiday season. They teamed up with their Pets squad to welcome holiday travelers to the airport and enhance their experience by having dogs there to greet you as you arrive or as you depart from Tyler. So it's always a stressful thing, and so to have a dog there to say, hey, it's going to be okay is a great thing. So they return during the Christmas travel rush and continue to make the customer experience unique and memorable there. And then also just a couple of awards and recognitions. The Hispanic Business Alliance of Tyler recently held their annual luncheon and recognized Carol Kaufman with our solid waste department as the Community Impact Leader of the Year. And so we're very proud of her for that one. Carol has been with the city for 13 years and is currently account specialist and auditor with the solid waste department. The Hispanic Business Alliance also recognized the city of Tyler itself with the President's Adelante Award, I think I got that, of the year. And so we're very honored to receive this award for our forward outreach with the Hispanic community of Tyler. And so we just want to make sure that that kind of is passed on and for the hard work that the city council does and is recognized.
Great, thank you. Any other comments or questions for the city manager?
I want to add to that the Tyler Metro Chamber is having their awards on Thursday night as well.
Oh, okay, this Thursday.
Tomorrow night.
There we go.
I'd like to add one thing also. I ran into Leroy earlier this week, and he was actually leading by example and getting his hands dirty. I know I saw him back there earlier, but he was on a truck himself. And so I just want to commend him for doing that. I know they've been some people out with illness and short-staffed, so I just wanted to commend him for being out there with his group.
Okay. And this is our only meeting this month, correct?
That is correct, yes, sir. Unless
So-
you want to meet again, we put something together.
So we're done until after Christmas.
That is correct. Unless again, you want to, it is entirely up to the mayor and council, unless if y'all want to have a special meeting to
No,
get together.
that's good. So I guess this is a good time to say Merry Christmas to everybody. Merry Christmas, everybody out there.
Merry Christmas.
And I entertain a motion to adjourn. Anybody want to adjourn? Okay. We got a motion. We're adjourned.